Welcome back to Vital Signs. I'm Jen Gaudet here with my amazing guest, Cathy Dimarchos. And before the break, we were talking about giving back isn't just about helping others. It changes us too. Social impact shifts our own well-being. Well, research shows that volunteering improves mental health. Cathy, in your experience, how does giving back shift our own psychological well-being?
It goes back to that contributing, feeling like you belong. So giving back is so often thought about, the monetary element, but it is in fact the giving of you that actually shifts. So that giving of you is actually about your sense of purpose. I've had so many clients actually share that, what's the point? What's the point when I don't actually have anything to look forward to? But that looking forward to is actually about you sharing, you know, you actually talked about a simple smile. That simple smile shifts everything. And when you get that back, that again reignites that sense of belonging. So it works like a mirror. When you actually, light up somebody, you're actually lit up within yourself. And so it affects not only your well-being, but everybody that's actually in your circle or who you actually come, into contact with. That smile can in fact shift not only the thought but the position, the state of being of that other person that you're actually just cross paths with. That actually creates a ripple effect. So the place in which they were going, where there may have actually been you know um, fear, um, you know an uneasiness for where they were going and where their thought of mind has now actually shifted because you have actually crossed their path and you have given them that sense of hope, perhaps that thought of there is something else other than was actually topical in the moment. So there is so much more that actually happens just by sheer kindness, just by a sheer smile, just by a sheer eye contact, allowing people to actually feel like they've been seen. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Oh, absolutely it does. And actually it's really funny. We've been talking about this needing to be seen, the human need to be seen, the human need to be heard, that is shared by all of us. And a lot of times, especially in marginalized communities or people who are struggling, we feel like we're invisible. And so I'm going to shift and ask you a question specifically to that because I think you're uniquely positioned to talk about this. But for those who think that they're struggling personally and they feel like they're in that space of personal struggle, how can acts of service help them build resilience and confidence and actually shift their mindset positively? Like, what does that look like? And can you share an example?
Oh, there's so many instances. I go back to, how did I actually land here? And when I was in my 20s, it was during the global financial crisis, and I was actually in finance. Those situations weren't just about, that interaction or that transaction about what I was doing for work. It was genuinely listening to what people actually were sharing. And that actually is listening to also what's not said and allowing them to be heard. And in those situations, I had clients that were, they had suicidal ideation. Building that sort of relationship allowed them to actually reach out to me in moments of crisis. And so it is the little nuances, the smile, the acknowledgement, the giving of space that actually shifts everything. And when people feel like finally they've been heard, finally they've been seen, and not just for what is at surface level, something shifts within them and allows you to actually create this space of, finally I actually am somebody else other than what's actually being seen in this situation. That changes everything.
Yeah, and so I'm going to ask you a further question because I mean you've worked with conscious business leaders worldwide. Have you seen any patterns in how acts of generosity, acts of social impact, have changed their leadership and decision making on the other side in other areas? And what does that look like?
Now, there is no doubt that there is an enormous amount of pressure, stress, anxiety that is actually created, particularly in those C-suite positions and also for founders. When they actually shift their mind in that they can contribute to something more, particularly working in marginalised communities, and actually not just handing over of the money, actually being involved on the ground and seeing how other people, perhaps live, engage, how they find joy in the smallest of things, something shifts inside them. And finally, they're contributing in a way that they've never done before, seeing that they're not only changing the lives of the person that's in front of them or the people that's in front of them, but that they are contributing to generational change where that might not have happened before. Seeing that interaction of them personally being involved and how they have contributed sees a very different person of who they are, on the inside. And it actually allows them to see the person that they want to become. And so everything shifts. So it's not just about the impact that they've made, in the work that they've done, but also in who they are. And that then shifts because, personally, I've seen that, happen some 10 years ago when I actually did some work living, out with a Maasai, changing that entire perception about who I am and understanding my own privileges and the lens in which I actually saw things, that subconscious bias come to surface enabled me to decide how I wanted to live life. And I think that's what happens, as a whole.
I've had the same experience. I've done medical exchange overseas and a lot of different things over my lifetime, and it always impacts me so strongly about, like, if something's hard or if I'm facing a challenge here at home, it's nothing compared to what other people actually see as blessings. And so I think the biggest mindset shift that occurs when we do actually put our hands to work and we get there, and you're absolutely right. Writing a check doesn't achieve this at all. I have to do hands-on myself. And there's a place for the financial check as well. But, when you are actually the one doing the work, it's a sense of purpose, but it's also a sense of, hey, look, I'm doing something for somebody else, and that's why we're here. That's that spiritual community component. And so I'm going to ask you the question, because a lot of times people who are watching this show, they may be limited mobility, they may be challenged with this, but what's one small mindset shift or daily practice that our audience, no matter what situation they're in, can adopt so that they can start to embrace the abundance and impact the world around them?
I often talk about gratitude, and this is something that we've all heard, but it is genuinely finding the gratitude in the smallest of things. And that actually incorporates, when you have a challenging day, there will inevitably have been something that you can give gratitude for. Even the lesson in which you have experienced the challenge, that within itself, there is an element of being grateful for you having experienced it, because it then actually becomes a lesson. I'll share an example. In one of the projects, and I was in remote Tanzania, I actually broke, my leg. And, in that moment, I can tell you the look of horror of, everybody around me was, oh my Lordy, now, like, she's actually got to go to hospital, right? And there were a whole lot of layers, including I was in a high HIV area, we had to find a hospital first of all, and so it was all of that. But the only thing that was sitting in my mind was, please let it be a clean break, because if it's a clean break, I can stay on, I don't need surgery. Because the only thing that was a worst case scenario for me was, my driver was actually only telling me last night that hospitals don't have the ability to sterilize. I'm in a high HIV area. That's the worst case scenario. So all I could think of was, it's okay. It just needs to be a clean break. And so shifting my mind from chaos, catastrophe to, well, this is actually all that I need. Do you know, it was almost like that's what got created. You know, we had to drive around to get to 3 different hospitals to find, what I needed to be done. And it was a clean break, and then it was, well, I need to find crutches.
Hmm. You know,
But we continued. The gratitude that I actually had purely that it was a clean break, I can't tell you. Like to this day, I'm so grateful that it was a clean break that I stayed, because the experience, like you said, it gave me so much more than what I can tell you, was actually gifted to the people that attended the training. That was actually a financial literacy training program, that saw women who had heard about it, and men, because men ended up joining, but they were walking for 2 hours. These were people that weren't necessarily part of it, that walked for 2 hours each day because they wanted to also be part of the learning. What a gift. That gift was to me.
hmm absolutely. Cathy, thank you so much for sharing your incredible insights on how giving back isn't just an act of kindness, it's a way to build a better world while transforming our own lives. How can people reach out to you if they'd like to learn more about this or participate in social impact?
My website, so solutions2u.com.au, and it's the number 2. And you'll be able to actually reach out to me and have a chat, or actually have a look at some of the work that we do.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And you, yes, you at home, no act of giving is too small, and investing in others is one of the best ways to invest in yourself. We do have to take a brief break, but we'll be right back after these messages.